who never called a press conference to engage the media properly on our resources, this afternoon sent out an email at 1:30 p.m. inviting the media to a 3 p.m. press conference at Lenora on the west coast of Demerara, his hometown. Uncle, how can journalists meet there on time? This wasn't the president's concern, because, you know, he had his own aim, his own agenda. He wanted this to go on record that he called a press conference. When my reporter showed up, was a big outreach program he had with his countrymen and women. This is what the leaders resorting to these days, finding every corner to tell the nation them a whole press conferences to take questions from journalists. And when they ask questions, the crowd mocking them. You hear that, Kevin? The crowd mocking them. This is what President Ali turning Guyana into. Sent out a statement, an urgent media advisory, and then set up his people, his clownish people, to prevent reporters from asking their critical questions. Good going, guys. Nice way to run a country. All over the world, leaders putting out statements days in advance, while our leaders giving you minutes just to avoid being questioned on how they're managing your country. You gotta love this country, Mr. Anand. Yes, you gotta love this country called Guyana. I heard a little piece of President Ali conversation telling my reporter, we report the negatives on failed oil countries, but not reporting on the successful oil countries. How can we report on the successful oil countries when our country is not doing the positive things to become a successful country, Anand? Kaieteur News pointing out the road in which the failed oil states went, so that you people can understand that we are heading down the wrong road. Wow. The things we're reporting, Uncle, is to put our leaders on guard not to make the same mistakes those failed oil countries made, so that we can become successful, President Ali. And that's the duty of the press to a nation. We are not here to show all is bright and gloomy. The glory is here when it's not. I am happy to hear you say you're reading the newspapers at the press conference, but you guys have not been acting in the best interest to save this country and its people. It's so sad, Anand. It's so sad. Since last week, Jagdev held a press conference, and when my reporters asked him questions, he told them this press conference is to deal with party issues. Next week he can hold one. This week already done, and we still waiting on him. Yesterday he held another PPP press conference at Freedom House again. So very few reporters turn up, because he made it clear last week he's dealing with party issues whenever you see him at Freedom House. When he realized yesterday that journalists didn't turn up, He said he's open for questions outside of the realm of the party. You guys see the cunningness and deceitfulness here, uncle? Then he would say, look, I had a press conference and asked for questions, but nobody was there. Selling out our country, selling out our future, and they're ducking, hiding, and running from the press. Uncle, auntie, every Guyanese have to become journalists in this country to keep them busy and for you people to know what's going on in this country. I am saying enough on these programs for you guys not to confront them with very simple questions. Why they're not renegotiating the Exxon contract or putting in ring fencing on these new projects? Why are we not protected with full liability coverage from the parent companies? You guys got to start standing up and stand up for your rights too. You can't leave it to the press alone. The president closed off his press conference today. From the time he heard my reporter ask him about ring fencing provision for the fifth project. Wow. Kevin, Anand, let's get on with what I want to share with Guyana tonight before I lose my cool. Let me take a breath. Wow. The U.S. Embassy has issued a statement to their citizens in Guyana, warning them to be on the high alert due to threats they received against U.S. business interests. Without going into details or providing any specifics, let me say here, I wish to join in condemning any threat to anyone or their properties in Guyana. Any threat against foreign nationals on our soil is to be deplored. I hope that those who are responsible for such threats are brought to justice. I hope so. I want to believe, Anand, that the threats they are talking about have a lot to do with American business in this country and the way they are perceived by the Guyanese population. By that statement, Uncle, the U.S. is playing its role in safeguarding the business interests of their nationals and their country. But since Guyana is also a key partner to the U.S. and its companies, I hope that the embassy would also be as vigilant in protecting the interests of the Guyanese people and their businesses too. What you say, Anand?
Yes, sure.
The U.S. Embassy is concerned about what is important to them and their people's interests in our oil sector, our gold and other rich minerals with our oil. Uncle and Auntie, let me repeat, they have every right to be concerned about their people's interests and the threats to them. But what happened to our people and our interests that is being threatened every minute of the day? Don't we have a right as the owners of these massive resources to speak out as to the gangsterism taking place against our interest and our people? I'm just asking. Just asking, Anand. Statements of this kind, Uncle, are not accidental, nor do they just spring out from nowhere. For an embassy to put out such a statement, they have to know what's going on across the length and breadth of Guyana. They know that the Guyanese people's eyes are opening and they're seeing what is happening with their wealth and what it means for them, their children, and their pockets. They know. They are smelling. They can almost taste how the Guyanese people are tired of deceitfulness, of being lied to, pushed around and robbed so blatantly of their resources. They are tired of seeing, reading and hearing all of these foreigners prospering from their wealth, while they, the owners, cannot afford a passage to send their children to school. Shouldn't our people be concerned about their interests too? Aren't they tired of being the victims of unbelievable robberies when they have their children walking miles from Sophia to schools in the city? Eh, brother? Children also walking miles to schools in every part of this country with very little in their lunch kits because their parents don't have money for transportation. In some cases, brothers and sisters, if the parents don't have passage for those who cannot walk to school, they are kept home, away from schools. When things like these can happen in the most wealthiest of country on earth today, who can remain quiet? Who will not react? React to this nightmare, this horror story? Who can still say they don't have any interest in the state of affairs? What? Aren't Guyanese people too? Huh? Guyanese don't count as human beings? When our children cannot be properly educated in the richest country on earth today, man? Huh? Isn't this a case for them to be concerned about? The ambassador talked about threats to the U.S. citizens and their business interests. What about the horrible daily threats to our Guyanese interests and existence, may I ask? May I ask that to the ambassador and the high commissioners of this country? I am not talking about violence or threatening anyone. And I don't ever want anyone to threaten violence to anyone, local or foreign. Let me be very clear about that. We want our rightful share and what is fair for every single Guyanese out of our own resources. Is that too much to ask for, Ambassador? Aren't these interests worthy of raising or putting out statements to? Asking for, fighting for a fair share from what rightfully belongs to me and every Guyanese. I hope that is not a threat, Madam Ambassador. I hope that you will join me and every Guyanese in getting the best for our Guyanese. And with that, I say namaste. May the joy, may the happiness, may the peace, the divinity within me be with you. This is my story. This is my song. And I will sing it all day long. You know that song? This is my story. This is my song. Praising my Savior all day long. That's my story. Let me say this as clear as I can. I, like all the Guyanese, welcome every foreigner into our country who are coming here to explore for business opportunities so that they can make money. But when they make money, we must make money too. And nothing so far for the last 30 years has been about us making anything but pennies. How can this ever be right? How can I or anyone else who got any respect for themselves, any decency within them, who love their kids, stay quiet and collect pennies while the billions of US dollars worth of our resources are being ripped out of this country every week? Madam Ambassador and High Commissioners to this country, inequality causes people to live in poverty, which sparks hunger, distress, sickness, and everybody knows a hungry man is an angry man. Why so many Guyanese have to live scraping from the bottom of the barrel and live with 600 and 1,000 Guyana dollars a day? Why? Why? Is this fair? Is this just? How isn't that a threat to those citizens? Or they are not humans? I have seen what you people did in Africa, throughout Asia. I have seen the murder of presidents and fighters for their people, how they were killed. Let me say this. Lall is not afraid of death. That will give me, or I should say that will give my work a life of its own. I am prepared for whatever comes my way, but I will never, ever back down, back away, or back out from this struggle to inspire and educate this nation. If speaking out and fighting for my own dignity, our own survival, our own future, then I am happy to go wherever and whatever the Maker has in store for me. One thing I must say, He has never let me down throughout my years on this earth, and that is my security. I walk around Guyana, and I know I never walk alone. And I believe, Uncle, every human being should walk this earth without any fear too. Uncle, when you make truth your mantra, you don't have to hide in darkness. When you practice equality, honesty, living with dignity, then those are your statements that you can walk freely and fearlessly anywhere on earth. How can foreigners come here, sucking the blood out of our bodies, the air out of our lungs, and tell us to be happy not to be angry, not to react. Or we should just roll over and take what you are shoving at us. I hope that nothing I speak on the radio or have written in the newspapers is ever considered a threat to anybody's business interests, because all we want is our fair and rightful share from every foreigner doing business in this country. Give us that, and we will applaud the work you guys are doing. When everybody benefits, everybody is happy. When only one side benefits, then you see Jumbie all over. And I think that is what you people are seeing right now in this country. Jumbies. Uncle, that statement to their citizens came out because they're feeling the heat. They're smelling the wrath of you, the people out there, listening to these programs and reading the Kaieteur news. Is the naked truth we are bringing to your ears and eyes. For too long, these foreigners have been doing this thing to us. Thieving out your bread and butter while you are left to suck cane, the cane hooks with salt. How things like this can go on and a nation can keep calm, Madam Ambassador? Every day you guys boasting about how Guyana is so good and great over your interests. What about the greatness? What about the greatness for the Guyanese people and their interests? Guys, uncle and auntie, them driving Mercedes-Benz, Lexus, BMWs, and Audis with our wealth, while some of us can't even afford to buy a bicycle for your kid to ride to school, or find a bus fare to send them to school. How can this ever be in this country? The fastest growing economy on earth today. How can this ever be acceptable, brothers and sisters? Foreigners concerned about their prosperity, their interest, and their security. What happened to the prosperity, security, and interests of we, the Guyanese people? Or we're dogs? Uncle, I want you guys to listen to this tape. What they're teaching and preaching in academic classrooms. How to exploit Africa and Asia with their resources just to enrich themselves from it. And how to keep the Africans and Asians down where they are. You're stupid. You're hungry, stay right there. That's what they did to the whole Africa and Asia, and doing it worse presently in Guyana with the help of our leaders. Yes. Yes. Today's technology is a godsend to people like Lall and third world countries. The whole of Africa and Asia is waking up. And I am so happy that the whole of Guyana is also waking up too. Please play that tape. Let them listen to it.
Sub-Saharan Africa has been fundamental to the global prosperity of the advanced countries. And Africa had a role to play. It has a role as a raw material producer. We will not allow Sub-Saharan Africa to escape that. Okay, we do everything to keep Sub-Saharan Africa where it is, also impoverished. It's absolutely vital for the prosperity of everyone else. So let's get clear about that. Okay, and this means all the economic structures, all the global institutions, and the economics we teach everyone is all designed to keep Africa exactly where it is. And whether it is Europe or US or now China, it's always the same. We need Africa to be impoverished because we need those raw materials and we need them dirt cheap. Okay, so that's the message. It doesn't mean to say that there's nothing Africans can do. Of course there is. This is what it's about. Because if Africa does do something different, I assure you living standards of all those in Europe and North America and Asia is going to fall. Okay? And that is a big price to pay. I assure you that the West is not going to allow that without a big fight. Okay, so the job of many Western academics is to convince Africans they have to keep doing what they're doing. Okay? And to show them it's your fault that you're poor. It's not our fault. It's your fault that you're poor. You know, so this is what we do in academic institutions. We know the basic forces that have caused this underdevelopment. We know it's colonization. We cannot afford to allow Africa to industrialize and start producing manufactures. Okay, so we will do everything to stop that. And I'm going to show you how we actually block that. We had East Asian rapid industrialization processes. So in the earlier period, we had Japan and Korea and Taiwan. Okay, rapid growth, sucking in raw materials from Africa, driving up the prices. After those countries finished industrialization, then Sub-Saharan African growth rate again fell. Sub-Saharan Africa is condemned to this role, just the supplier of raw materials, not a manufacturer. The currencies are collapsing of these countries, and many of them are Sub-Saharan African countries. After colonization ended, we needed new structures to keep these countries where they were. Okay? And the first of those is aid. Okay, we give them aid. Aid for what? Actually, we give them aid to keep repressive regimes in power. That's all. All the hypocrisy about transparency and democracy and bullshit like that, it's all bullshit. But it would go to country after country offering loans. And if the president did not accept the loan, they were killed. It's just economics. It's economic warfare. The rich declare war on the poor. It happens everywhere. It happens in a country. The rich control the government. Of course they do. You really believe you have democracy? Come on. You know, I mean, grow up. Who has all the subsidies and income support? US, Europe. The largest budgets in the world for supporting their farmers are Europe and US. You see, we're keeping them dependent. We're keeping them on a string. This next round of the WTO is designed to block that. To block anyone else getting on top of the ladder.
Keeping them on a string. Wow. Sub-Saharan Africa has been fundamental, important to the global prosperity of the advanced countries. Africa has a role to play as the raw material supplier. You know what is raw material mean? What a raw material means, uncle? The raw gold, the raw diamonds, the raw timber, your raw oil, and so on. Let's remove Africa and put in Guyana there. What you heard there is the same thing being repeated right here in Guyana, guys. Huh? Yeah. What they did in Africa and India for hundreds of years isn't the same thing going on right now with our raw materials, our rich natural resources? Bernard?
Yes, 100%.
Oh, and we must stay quiet. We mustn't say nothing. Because if we say something, it can be interpreted as a threat to their security and business interests. We will not allow Africa to escape. We need to do everything to keep Africa where it is today, impoverished. It is absolutely vital for the prosperity of everyone else. Uncle, again, take out Africa and put in Guyana. See how perfectly that fit? Right there we are. Their prosperity is with our patrimony. Their great life depends on our continued poverty, and we must stay quiet. We must smile through our pain while they gain and their interests flourish. Everything we teach you is designed to keep Africa exactly where it is. Whether it is Europe, US, or now China, it is always the same. We need Africa to be impoverished because we need those raw materials and we need them dirt cheap. Oh, Anand, take out Africa again there, Uncle, and substitute Guyana. We are right there. They need it dirt cheap. Yes, raw material, they need dirt cheap. We raw gold, they're getting it for nothing. Now we raw oil. You're getting 2% royalty, while them walking away with 98%. How can this ever be fair? High commissioners and ambassadors to this country. Uncle, how can they walk away with 98% and don't even pay a single taxes in this country too?
The government pays it out.
How? How this can be fair to these hungry and angry citizens of this country that owns the wealth? How come there is no security alert on these high crimes being committed against the business interests of the Guyanese people in this country, ambassador and high commissioners? How come? Tell the nation something in another statement from your embassies about their interests and their economic security. That shouldn't be difficult. After all, you know, 3/4 of the school children in this country going to school hungry. Your country is putting out statement to that effect. The World Bank just said half of the population living with $1,000, 600 Guyana dollar a day. How about a statement on that? You guys put out a statement 2 weeks ago and say Guyanese must benefit from their oil resources. How are they going to benefit? How is that possible with 98% for the American and Chinese business interests and 2% for the Guyanese interests? Who owns the oil? How are they going to benefit with no taxes? How? Eat their fingernails and expect the nation to remain silent? It doesn't mean there is nothing Africans can do, the man said. Of course they can do. But this is what it is. Because if they do something different, the living standards in the big countries is going to fall. And that's a big price to pay. You hear that, uncle? That is what the man said in the video you listened to just now. So, they will eliminate whoever in their way, any threats to their security and prosperity. Uncle, that is why they put in that word sanctity in the oil contract. And telling we hungry people, we have to abide with sanctity of contract. If we don't abide by the sanctity of contract, and whoever in their way clicks and knock your head out. Lall around? Tell you to be careful. Watch your back. The people watching he. I want them to know if they take out Lall and believe that they are going to get their way to do the same thing they do to Africa and Asia, they lie. Lots of Lall already there in all them villages across this country. And new ones are being born every day.
Here.
Let me say this, guys. If ever them poison me, I make sure me body don't burn before it goes to rest. Yes. Before I burn it, it must go in front all them embassies, especially those what thieving out, taking advantage and enslaving us. And it must also go in front of the offices of the government officials. That's my only wish, nothing else. And I also want you guys to play these radio programs. Yes. And I want to play it loud so that the world can know, see and hear what Lall stood for. The fight he put up to get his rightful share, not only for himself, family, but for every Guyanese.
Yep.
The people of this country must have their rightful share, whether it is from my efforts or from those of the other Guyanese who are moved into action by the things I stood. Yes, by the things I stood for and done. Bernard, the tide is turning and the pot is boiling, and there is no way I can see these types of heinous crimes continuing in this land. I am sorry, ambassadors and high commissioners. If I am offending you people, I am sorry. It's not my intention. All I want for me, my family and my Guyanese people is that our interests are secured with what God Almighty blessed us with. I don't think that is too much to ask for.
Not at all.
Your countries and your people have done enough to we the people and this country. And it is time this thing come to an end.
Past time, earlier.
Yes, it is time. Ambassadors and high commissioners, I have a question for all of you. What kind of human beings walk into a poor man's home and snatch the little food he has for his family and leave them to starve? Or make them have to live with mud cakes? Huh? We all know this has been going on for centuries. where the white world huffed out the black world's wealth in Africa and Asia. They snatched out the Indians' wealth out of India when they were dumb and didn't know the real value of their wealth. Come on, guys. Today, we know even more than you the value of our resources. Why is the people being treated this way? Like if we got monkey brains. Why? We shouldn't be security conscious. Why shouldn't we be economically conscious with our wealth? Or should we roll over, like I said, and allow it to continue to rape us all? It's not going to happen. Not as long as God allowing us to breed. No, no. No, no. This got to come to a full stop, guys. I always remember the words of a Mexican revolutionary. I will rather die on my feet fighting for what is my own than to live on my knees begging for something of my own. And that's what Glenn Lall, and I believe, Bernard, that 95% of the Guyanese are with me on that.
Oh, yeah. Yes, 100%. Yes.
Long gone are the days kneeling with our hands stretched out for a plate of food, man. No. It has to come to an end, Anand.
Our leaders are making that happen. Begging on our knees.
But the West wouldn't allow the African to change anything without a big fight, the man said. Well, uncle and auntie, that fight is on right now. I have been on it 29 years in the Kaieteur News and on the radio 2.5 years now. The big countries don't want to move and saying how their interests are being threatened. What happened to we interests, Ambassador? Or we don't have interests? Huh? Their interest is being threatened. Our livelihood, our survival, our future, our economic survival is being threatened. What happened, Ambassador and High Commissioners? Again, aren't we people? Or are we just a piece of thing that you can pick up and pelt it anyhow you like? Or are we obstacles, bumps on the road to be driven over and beaten down? Are we anyone? Your interest is threatened. The thievery of our wealth is threatened, and got the nerve to tell us that their business interest is threatened. Nothing for we is being threatened. We police, soldiers, nurses, and all them public servants, the pensioners, them school children, must take what they get in and make good, and make a good life out of it, Bernard. You got to love Guyana, eh? You got to love Guyana the same way I love this piece I heard. The man said earlier. Listen to it. So the job of the Western academics is to convince the Africans that they have to keep doing what they're doing and to show them it is their fault that they are poor. It is not our fault. The white man's fault. Wow. Those were his exact words, you know. Them must not only rob you, uncle, They must kick you and convince you that you kick yourself. Wow. Isn't that what's happening? Isn't that what's happening here already with our leaders? Yeah, guys? The PNC, the AFC, and the PPP kicking us on our behalf. They're kicking us. They are the ones kicking us on the white man's behalf. Telling us it is our fault that we are poor. Signing away gold contracts, diamond contracts, timber contracts, and the grandmother of all, the oil contract, with sanctity of contract in it. The white man not saying anything about the sanctity of contract. How you like that? Them is saying nothing about the sanctity of contract. But them defending it. Yes, for the white man. Me leaders. Oh. The man was so correct. Show them it is their fault that they are poor. It's not the white people's fault. Let me repeat, man. The PNC signed a nasty deal which Jagdeo can change if he only put a brakes on the fifth and every other pending projects in which every home can get $1 million, no less than $1 million a month. But he not going down that road. He bending towards the white man, protecting his interests and that of the foreigners, while endangering your economic interests, your future, uncle. I told you, he had a press conference yesterday and said he not worry about losing votes for not renegotiating the Exxon contract. That's what he said. That's his way of saying that he's protecting the embassy's interests. Then he went on to say, the same announcement, the threat about the U.S. Embassy is a serious one, and how he government taking it very serious. You see how this thing bind together, Bernard? Yeah. That man wasn't wrong when he said, you have to convince them that it is their fault they're poor. You see whose interest Barajak they were making priority? The embassy's economic interests is more important than our economic survival. And he don't care about Ayo votes. In other words, he telling Ayo, y'all gonna vote for them because he know Ayo not going to vote for anyone else. So you can do Ayo anything. Ambassador and High Commissioners, how can this nation continue living peaceful and look upon y'all as friends when this is going on in this land? Thievery or thieving our resources, throwing a pittance at us, then telling us it's our fault that we there where we there. We need some honest answers and clear statements on that, ambassadors and high commissioners. Madam Ambassador, almost 2 weeks ago, you had applauded the government of Guyana for honoring the sanctity of contract, protecting, preserving, and prospering your American interests. Madam Ambassador, What about the interests of the people who own this wealth? The Guyanese people. Every one of y'all getting richer on we wealth. Isn't it time we get something that resembles richness too? What you say to that? How about issuing a statement to that effect? I will be the first one to applaud and front page such a statement from you. The guy told us, this is what we teach in academic institutions. We know the basic forces that they have caused this. We know it's colonization. We cannot afford to allow Africa to industrialize and start producing manufacturers. We will do everything to stop that. And I am going to show you how we can block that. You hear the man words? You hear that, uncle? We must not own factories and become manufacturers. That's what he's saying. We must not make nothing to sell from our raw materials. We must just give them. Give them we gold, give them we oil, we bauxite, we timber, and so on. So that they can be the manufacturers and we can import everything back from them. That's what they're saying. That's what the man is saying there. Importing back gasoline, diesel, finished lumber, aluminum from the bauxite. We must give them the manganese. Them process it in Canada and we must buy it back for throwing we wells to purify we water to drink. Yes. We must send we raw gold and they're going to send back jewelry. And God the nerve to tell us they will do everything to stop us if we want to open a processing factory. Like from the manganese, bauxite, timber, or oil. They have been doing that all the years, uncle. You can't take a piece of jewelry to the US or Canada or England. You can't even process and send a piece of gill back. But they can come here, dig up we gold, and send it to their countries by the tons. And on top of that, your leaders hiding the contracts in the brief or in the underwear from us.
And the expense too.
Africa is condemned to this role. Just the supplier of raw materials, not the manufacturer. Remove Africa and slip in Guyana there, guys.
Perfect fit.
That's where we are. That's a perfect fit. Like I said, we must manufacture nothing and export. We must only buy the things from their factories so that their people and their country can prosper. The man said, or went on further to say, after colonization ended, yes, when slavery ended, uncle, we needed new structures to keep these countries where they were. We need a new plan to keep them where they are. And the first thing they did was give them aid.
IMF from the World Bank.
We give them aid. Aid for what? We give them aid to keep the repressive regimes in power. That's all. All the hypocrisy about transparency and democracy is bullshit. His words. Exact words, dear uncle. Aid. Aid. Slavery ended. So you got to find another way to tie up the people. So they come up with this new plan, aid. Throw aid at you and call it help. Charity, uncle. Make some of you feel nice with charity. Yes, when we collect it, we jump up for joy. America, Canada, China, give away this and give away that. When they fetch out 100 billion, they give you 1,000 in aid. And fatten the leaders' pockets with a little change to keep them in office so that they can control me and you. Keep your mouth shut. Bring lawsuits on you if they can. We got nowhere to run. No one else to vote for. Africans will vote for the PNC and the Indians will vote for the PPP. And we all live happy with aid, charity, sanctity of contract, and the priority for foreign business interests. Isn't that the reality in Guyana, brother?
100%.
Huh? You tell me. The U.S. ambassador gave me 1.5 million US and said it's going to help regularize the fishing industry. When she business interests people, ExxonMobil, know fully well that the oil operations will completely destroy the entire fishing industry. And we, minister, collecting the 1.5 million, clapping hands. Yes, clapping hands. Collecting aid, uncle, charity, handout, and saying, thank you, Madam Ambassador, thank you. You fishing industry almost gone. Thousands of Guyanese fishermen interests gone. All the people who depend on a livelihood from fishing going hungry. And they give Guyana 1.5 million to keep a quiet. An industry bringing in, Bernard, our seafood industry, bringing in 70 to 100 million US a year in our country. And we get 1.5 million. 1.5 million for a live a one time. Whose interests are you protecting, dear Madam Ambassador, with that 1.5? The Guyanese fishing interests? Or isn't it ExxonMobil interests? Hungry fishermen and their families must remain quiet. The great grandmother looking out for you guys, giving you 1.5 million for regularize the fishing industry. Wow.